Merry Christmas. I know it's a bit strange that we're having class on Christmas, but hey, don't blame me, blame the director. Anyways, I hope you had an amazing day, and hopefully you had lots and lots of gifts. Now, because it is Christmas, I think that it's only fitting that we look at Delibird today. Delibird. Now, Delibird is the delivery Pokemon. And it is an ice and flying type Pokemon. And as a fun fact, it's also number 225. 225 in the National Pokédex. I say we get right into it and look at some of its basic things first, right? So, as you can see, its body looks like a small red bird or a penguin, with white fur on its face. And the most iconic thing about it has to be its long tail. And you may know this, but this is because this tail functions as a bag or a sack of some sort. This bag is its primary sort of like tool, Delibird uses this tail bag, I guess, for food storage, for carrying items, and it even uses it to attack, Now, we'll get to a bit more about its tail and the attacks, especially from it, later. Now, where do you think Delibirds live? As with most ice-type Pokemon, they usually live in cold or mountainous regions, specifically areas that tend to have a lot of snow. However, as ice types are, they are very well suited for these low temperatures, and they have a lot of feathers all over their body to keep them warm, keep them protected from the cold, make sure that they can live and thrive in this type of environment. Now, Delibirds are really interesting because they're not a Pokemon that is a strong fighter. It also doesn't evolve, so it's not like they're a very menacing Pokemon, especially in these like icy conditions. But Delibirds are actually quite smart and quite logical Pokemon, and they're really, really friendly as well. Delibird is known to go around and performing a bunch of like delivery routes in order to give supplies or gifts to friends, but it also does it to lost travelers and Pokemon who are in need. Just an example. So it's not going to judge you, basically, and it's going to give you gifts or supplies, to whoever may need them. And as you can guess, if you weren't sure before, that's why we're doing Delibird today, because it likes to give gifts. And that's also why it gets the name of the delivery Pokemon, because it's always delivering gifts, delivering supplies, delivering food, delivering items, medicine, whatever it needs, whatever you need, Delibird will deliver it to you. In fact, the delivery patterns of Delibird are actually quite predictable, and Delibirds will kind of like routine the same path. So if it goes from here to here, they will usually do the same paths going from here to here, checking for lost travelers, giving food, supplies, whatever they need to their friends that they know. Okay, I live here, I need to go from here to here. I have a friend who lives here. They're always going to go the same route. They're going to check that their friend is fine, that their friend has the supplies they need, and they will give it to them. And yeah, they will, visit them constantly to make sure that they can give their deliveries. It's really interesting to think about. I don't know. It's very like organized system that they have going on. Now, Delibirds will even work together. Yes, they like to deliver, but they also like to deliver together in a sense, because they will kind of work together in order to distribute their resources, their supplies across large areas, especially during, for example, harsh environments like a snowstorm, because they do live in snowy areas. So they will have one Delibird. Okay, you do this area and you do this area, so we can supply all the Pokemon, all the travelers, all the people in that area with help, with food, with items, medicine, whatever it is they need. Delibird did not judge, So as you can see, Delibird is a very helpful and very friendly Pokemon. But don't be fooled. I know that I did say that they're not really a battling kind of Pokemon, but if their stored items are threatened, they will become defensive and attack in order to maintain their stash, They want to share their goods, I guess, but they will not just have anyone steal their stuff. That's not fair. They want to be the ones to deliver it. They want to be the ones to be like, okay, you need this, I'll give you this thing that you need, which is fantastic, honestly, in my opinion. And, their stash, their gifts that they give, I think this really brings us kind of, I guess, to their most iconic Pokemon move. And if you know anything about Delibird, you will know this move. And this move is called Present, as in a gift, a present, it's called Present. Now Delibird is technically the only Pokemon that can learn this move. And I say technically, and we'll get to why it's technically later, but what you need to know is that they're basically the only Pokemon that can learn this move. Now, you might be wondering, right, what does Present do? It just gives the opponent the gift. Okay, what? No, that's not quite it. While Delibird does like giving gifts, the move Present will have Delibird reach into its bag, get a present out, and then it will throw it at their opponent. Now, Present is really interesting because it can either damage the target of the attack, but it can also heal them. I know, very strange. It's the same move, but if Delibird throws the present to you, it can either deal damage or heal you. And you might be wondering, what? Let me explain. So, generally, there are four different outcomes, that can happen when the move Present is used. Okay, the first one, and the most common one, which happens about 40% of the times, is that Delibird will reach into its package and grab a relatively weak attack in the form of a gift, and it will throw it. And it's generally a weak attack. It's not amazing, but it's okay. Now, the second outcome, which is slightly less likely to happen, at about 30% of the time, is that Delibird will reach into its bag and get a stronger present. Then now this one is relatively strong. It's not as strong as a flamethrower, for example, but it's up there. It's getting to that level, and it will obviously throw it and deal the damage. And then there is a 10% chance of this attack. Delibird will reach into its bag and it will grab a relatively big and strong present. And this attack is very, very powerful. In fact, it is known to be as strong as a Hydro Pump, as strong as Close Combat, or even as strong as the Dragon-type move Outrage, which is pretty crazy. But of course, this attack will only happen about 10% of the times, and Delibird is not really a strong Pokemon, so even if the attack is very strong itself, the issue is that Delibird using the attack does not give it too much power. But still something to keep in mind, And now those are 3 out of the 4 outcomes that can happen when Delibird reaches into its bag and uses the present move. Now, the 4th outcome is a really interesting one, and this attack, right, Delibird will reach into its bag and throw a present at you, but this present will actually heal the target. What? I know, right? It happens about 20% of the time, and it's really interesting since, you might be about to win a battle, and then you accidentally reach into your bag, throw your present, and heal the opponent. Not ideal if you're trying to, defeat them. But yeah, that's what makes present really interesting. It's a present, and it can be a positive present, but it can also be a painful one. Now, Delibird can also learn a bunch of other, standard ice and flying type moves, such as your standard Aerial Ace, Ice Shard, Air Slash, and you won't believe it, Delibird can learn the move Blizzard. I know, right? Not many Pokemon can learn Blizzard, I'm sure. Anyways, by a TM, it can finally access, other moves that are not ice and flying, such as, for example, just to name a few, Brick Break, Fling, Water Balls, Gunk Shot, and Body Slam, again just to name a few. So it does have some type attack variety, but not as much as other Pokemon, especially some that we've looked up in the past. Now let's look at some of Delibird's abilities. And they have 3 different abilities. And you're like, wow, 3 abilities? That's a lot that it can have. Well, let me spoil it for you right now. They basically have 2. And you're like, what? They have 3? Trust me, they pretty much have 2. Now let's look at them, okay? The first one is Hustle. And what does this do? So Hustle will increase Delibird's attack, but it also makes it so that their attacks are less accurate. So you attack stronger, but you're also more likely to miss. So are you willing to take the risk? Choice you have to make. The other ability that it can have is called Vital Spirit. Vital Spirit. And this basically makes it so that the Pokemon cannot fall asleep, which I think matches Delibird really well, because it represents, the fact that they're always traveling around delivering gifts, having this vital spirit, never falling asleep, always delivering the presents, So they cannot fall asleep if they have this ability. And then we look at its third ability, which is its hidden ability, and it is called Insomnia, which makes it so that the Pokemon cannot fall asleep. Yeah, you heard that right. So, 2 out of the 3 abilities do the exact same thing. I don't know which researcher decided to call them different abilities, but unfortunately now we have to deal with that, and it's on the curriculum, so remember that. But yeah, 2 out of the 3 abilities that it gets do the exact same thing, which is a bit useless, I guess. Now, because you've made it so far into class, and also because, we're having class on Christmas, I don't think we should. I'm going to give you some slightly private information as of now, but I think it will come to light relatively soon, so we should be fine to talk about it for now. But for now, don't say anything, okay? Basically, we're going to be looking at a recently discovered Pokemon in the Paldea region. Now, this Pokemon doesn't have a proper official name yet. It is now known for now as Iron Bundle. I have a photo of him here right now. Iron Bundle. Now, we don't have much information about it. In fact, there have only been 2 reported sightings of this Pokemon, but we believe it to be either a Delibird from the future or a Delibird counterpart from a different timeline. Yeah, you're gonna have to study a completely different course to learn about the different timelines and future past. You'll learn that in another course if you decide to go that way with your studies. That's not my expertise, definitely not. I look at more Pokemon and what you can learn about them. So, scientists in Paldea, as I mentioned, have named this Pokemon Iron Bundle, and we call this type of Pokemon a paradox Pokemon. And they have also defined it to be ice and water typed, so not like Delibird, who is ice and flying. This one is ice and water. Now, I don't want to say too much about this relatively unknown Pokemon, but as you can see, it sort of looks like a robotized robot version of Delibird. Instead of having the fur that Delibird has, it's very metallic, and its tail is now also metallic, and it kind of looks like a bigger bag and more robotized. And what is also very interesting is that we've seen that its head can actually come out and extend, sort of like a spring, I guess, And, as I said, we assume it to be a counterpart or a future version of Delibird. And this is not only based on the fact that it looks like a Delibird, but also the fact that it learns the move Present too. I said Delibird was technically the only Pokemon that can learn Present. Well, Iron Bundle can learn it too, which is why, technically, we don't know if it's technically the same Pokemon. So, yeah, but you shouldn't need to worry about that. Just remember that Delibird can learn it. All these new Pokemon that we are not sure about, like these paradox Pokemon, they're not gonna be on any exam because we're not sure about them yet. In 10 years, if we have more information, maybe they'll be in the required curriculum. But right now, don't worry about it. But yeah, as I said, we don't know too much about this Paradox Pokemon as of now. But hopefully in the future, we'll have more information. If you do well enough in your studies, maybe you can go over to the Paldea region, get a nice internship with people who are working on these mysterious Paradox Pokemon. I'm a bit jealous, I wish I could, but obviously I have to teach. But yeah, thank you for sticking around. I think I'm going to end the lesson here because we don't deserve to study during Christmas, let's be honest. So yeah, that will conclude our Delibird lesson for today. And Iron Bundle, but don't mention that yet, okay? Just wait a bit till more discoveries are made so they're more official. So that other researchers don't think that I'm the one leaking out information. But yeah, in my opinion, it is so cool to see that even in the wild, in the snowy, harsh mountains, there is some order, some like community in the form of Delibird making its route in delivering items and supplies, not only to Pokemon, but also travelers in need, which is great to know that even in these like harsh, scary mountains, there are Pokemon that are friendly and that are willing to help as well, which is amazing and always gives me confidence when I'm traveling in these types of paths as well. Anyways, let's not ramble on here. I hope you had an amazing Christmas and that you have lots of gifts, all that good stuff, and I will see you on the next class. Bye bye.